Ziyoga, can you hear me?
Hi. Yes, I can now.
Okay, cool. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Where are you located at?
I'm actually in the Netherlands at the moment.
Oh my gosh, that's so beautiful over there.
Yeah, I mean it's been raining quite a bit. Apart from the weather, it's a nice place.
Yeah, I'm in the US on the West Coast right now, and we're just having a lot of fires. And so the air quality is terrible. We've got smoke. I don't know if you see the pictures and stuff.
Yeah,
It's like
I
the
have.
red sky, and I'm like, whoa. Yeah.
That's crazy. I hope you're staying safe.
Yeah, I am. I'm just kind of like, well, just close all the windows and getting like an air filter kind
Yeah.
of going through. But
I mean,
yeah.
I can't imagine what that must be like. I've never been in those fires. I mean, I've always lived in Europe my whole life, so hope you're staying safe and well.
Thank you. I appreciate your time, kind of like taking time out of your day to help me with this. My goal here is to kind of figure out how I can help my clients better. And so just kind of I'd like to kind of ask you some questions on like, what are you struggling with? What solutions have you tried out there? Like, what are you kind of looking for? And just get a better idea and get to know the readers on my list. Is that
Yeah.
okay with you, Ziyoda?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Okay. So you opted in my Skinny Fat PDF book. And so I just wanted to kind of ask you, what were your goals when you opted in for that PDF? Or what are your kind of like current fitness goals if that's have changed?
I mean, what your book describes was exactly me. I mean, I've never been like very large before, but I've never been muscular either. So my stomach has always been quite round. My like I would have like love handles. How do you call it? And I always wanted to be strong. I really looked up to these models, these fitness influencers who had this muscle and tone. Um, who had these flat stomachs. That's what I really looked up to. I knew that I wasn't big. I've always been an average size, but when I took off my clothes and like looking at the mirror, that's what I didn't like. When I had clothes on, I looked fine. Nobody really commented. But for me, for myself, I wanted to feel strong. I wanted to feel good about myself. And when I read your book, it just resonated with me so much, like how you described how you felt at the beginning as well. Like just I mean, I always thought that to get fit I had to do running, I had to do cardio, I had to that's all I knew. I'd never even lifted weights in my life. Like I'd seen my brother do it, and all I see is that he's got like big biceps and abs, and I was like, well, I don't want to be like that. I had no idea that I had to actually lift weights to look that way. And when I read your book, that was like the first step that I really took in understanding what I had to do. So yeah.
Kind of what is your goal? Like how did
Hmm.
you want to change your body or change your life? Like what were you when you opted in? Like what did you visualize for yourself that you wanted to achieve?
Right. So the reason why I initially even started looking up stuff on Google was because, first of all, I felt like I wasn't really eating that well, right? I just wanted to improve the way I felt and the way that I looked as well. My goal was to really be more fit. So like do more activities, have more energy, and also look good. I think looking good was probably one of the first driving forces. Just seeing models that having like really skinny stomachs, like really flat stomachs. I mean, I've never been fat, but my a lot of the fat that I do have is around my stomach area. So that was always a problem for me, right? But I just couldn't figure out how to reduce that from my stomach area. And like I didn't want to lose even more weight because I'm actually like at the lower end of my BMI. So that was my goal, right? To first of all look good, and second of all feel good by eating the right foods. Um, so yeah, I don't know if Does that answer your question? You
Yeah,
can ask
yeah,
me.
definitely. Yeah, so you wanted to kind of have, is it like, um, when you look at yourself in the mirror, how did you want to look, Ziyoda?
Okay, so flat stomach, that was definitely number one. That hourglass figure. Um, my arms not to be so like, yeah, to have some kind of muscle, and also my shoulders to look nice, because my shoulders, I felt like they were very down, and like whenever I wore clothes it just looked like I had no shoulders at all. So improve my posture as well. So like, yeah, to have a little bit more of a figure, I guess, rather than just looking quite flat and square basically, or rectangular. So
Okay.
my aim was to look more of, to essentially look like the models that I saw, I guess, or the fitness models that I saw.
Mm. How is that going to kind of, when you achieve that, the body of the models that you see, right? And you have the flat stomach.
Mm-hmm.
Um, how is your life going to be different, Ziyoda? Are you going to
Yeah.
do anything different? Are your relationships going to change? Are you going to carry yourself different with your posture? Like, how is your life? What are you kind of seeing? Like, when I'm there, I'm like, oh, these doors are going to open and I'm going to have this life.
Yeah. I think definitely number one was confidence for me, just being confident to wear anything that I like, crop tops, for example, just feeling that confidence within myself, right? Not to be more likable for other people. I never really did it because I felt like nobody liked me, because I had plenty of friends and none of them ever commented on the way I looked. But for me, it was a personal goal to feel confident, to look good, and I just couldn't figure out how I could do that. I was honestly like doing sports. I did team sports. I played ultimate frisbee, but like my the way I looked never changed, right? I just stayed the same, and I just couldn't figure out why uh, it was this way. And I just wanted to feel more confident. I wanted to wear whatever I wanted, um, and just have that kind of feeling of like, you know, not wanting to take off my clothes and look at myself, basically. Um, so yeah.
What is kind of like the biggest struggle you're currently facing in terms of wanting to look a certain way for yourself? Like, what's kind of the biggest challenge for you to kind of transform your body or change the way you look?
Hmm. I think for me definitely is consistency. I know I have to be more consistent. Um, and the biggest struggle is that when I don't see results very fast, I lose that kind of motivation. I feel like, oh, you know what? I've been doing this. I don't see any changes. Especially because I'm looking at myself every day, right? Of course, I'm not going to see changes, and I know that in the back of my mind. But yeah, not seeing results and is probably the most challenging thing. Like to keep consistently working and not really seeing results very quickly is one thing that yeah, definitely struggle with the most.
What have you tried in the past, Ziyoda, to try
Um,
to kind of transform your body?
I mean, I started lifting weights, especially after I read your book as well. Um, but the thing is, for me, I mean, I've never hired a personal coach. I only do it from what I read, right? From I've tried lifting weights, so I've gotten a gym membership. I know the basic moves, like the compound movements. I know how to use the machines. But for me, I tried these things, right? But I could never stay consistent enough. I could never keep going, and I could never really, um, yeah, um, create a plan for myself to really stick to and believe in. Um, so yeah, I've I have tried lifting weights. I've done cardio. Um, After having done a lot of research, I know that I need to lift weights if I want to look the way that I want to look.
Um,
But yeah, I've just never stayed consistent.
what when you said to believe in it, like at the plan to believe in it to kind of keep going,
Yeah.
like what are you looking for to be like, oh yes, I know this plan is gonna work for me. Like this is gonna work, and then I'm gonna be consistent with it.
Um, yeah, I guess if somebody presented to me, say, a 3 month work plan where they've said, well, this is exactly what I did and this is how I look 3 months later, I think that's something that would um, motivate me more, definitely.
Mm. Have you seen a lot of those plans online? I'm sure you probably saw a lot of before and after pictures, right? Where
I
people are like
have, I
before
have.
and but have you bought into any of those plans?
Some, yes, I have. I think I purchased a couple before. I stuck to some. Others, I just, yeah, I'm at the moment. I am actually doing quite okay. I have started this plan. It's an ebook. I just follow it every day, um, and but then comes the next issue, right, of food and what to eat. But that's another story. But yeah, that's the one thing that really motivated me, right? At the beginning, I was really trying different things. I was just going to the gym without any plan whatsoever, just doing what I felt like. And then after doing more research, I realized that, well, I have to concentrate on my arms, then my legs, and then my, full body. So now I've started following a plan where I do four days a week. Um, so yeah, that's the thing that's actually kept me a bit more motivated, of having a plan, and also having these photos of end results.
Mm. What is your biggest fear about kind of building and working towards that transformation?
My biggest fear. That's a good question. I guess just not achieving what I want to achieve. So not looking the way I want to look at the end of working hard towards it. Um, that would probably be it. I mean, I'm definitely not scared of putting on too much muscle, because I don't put on muscle very fast at all. I know this for myself because I have been trying to lift weights. It for me it's quite difficult to put on muscle. So the kind of only thing that I fear the most is putting that time and real effort into it and not really ending up where I want to be.
What happens if you never end up to where you want to be, Ziyoda? How is that going to make you feel?
I think we're definitely disappointed. But I know it's not the end of the world, right? So that's the one thing that really keeps me motivated. I always tell myself, well, I feel good after going to the gym, right? And that's really what I do it for sometimes. So like that motivation, when I can't see the results, is that feeling of, well, I'm going to feel good afterwards. And it's also good for me to exercise anyway. So those are the two things that keep me motivated. But yeah, worst case is disappointment. I'm definitely a perfectionist. I like to achieve the goal that I set myself, and I think that's why I keep trying. I keep doing more research, and the reason why I actually signed up to your newsletter and got your PDF version of the book, just because I really want to achieve this. This is something that I want for myself. I feel like a lot of the other areas in my life are fine. So it's not like I have other problems I'm really like super worried about. So this is the reason why I really took my time to research and find different resources online.
Yeah. So your goal is to like you want to look like the supermodel, have the curvy body, right? The flat stomach and the confidence.
Mm-hmm.
So if tomorrow, Ziyoda, it all happens like boom, how do you know like when you've gotten there? Are you looking for like I I want to be able to wear certain clothes I have in mind, that it's like, or you're doing measurements, or you're able to lift a certain amount of weight, or what kind of event, or how are you measuring to be like, okay, yes, I am now confident. I can maybe like go ask that guy out, or I can go, you know what I mean? Like, what are you using to measure in your mind to be like, I've done it, I'm here?
Yeah, that's such a good question, and something that I've not really fully thought about, just because of like wanting to look good. But I think for me, definitely would be, if I had to kind of measure it and say to myself, well, I've kind of achieved it, is um, just looking at the mirror and being confident, just, seeing change, looking at past photos and after, seeing that change, is something that I would look for. I don't think it's anything like lifting X amount of weight. I think that definitely I want to be strong, but but for me, I mean, it's probably different for all your other, all the other people who sign up to your newsletter. But for me, it was definitely about how the way I looked and the way I felt. Um, I'd never even lifted weights in my life, so it wasn't something that I loved doing, but I knew that it was something that would get me into the results of what I wanted, essentially. So for me, the way I would measure is probably being able to look in the mirror and feel confident. Um, yeah, so I would say that.
Okay, cool. Um, so let's see here. Um, so this is like, what kind of social media platforms do you like to hang out on, Ziyoda? Are you big into Instagram, or you're like a Facebook person? And what kind of, are you in any kind of groups, or where do
Yeah,
you like hanging out on social media?
definitely Instagram. I think Instagram is my biggest one, because I feel like on Instagram it's very easy to just follow the people that I enjoy following. I watch their stories, which is actually very helpful. Um, Very big on Instagram, especially now. Maybe less before, but definitely now I'm on Instagram a lot more.
Okay, cool. So that's the last question I have for you, Ziyoda. What kind of questions do you have for me?
Um, just so my question is, I don't have very much weight to lose. So on the scale, I don't have very much, but I want to build muscle while also not building much more fat, because I know you have to be in a surplus, but should I be on a surplus, or should I be eating less in order to change my body composition, essentially? Yeah.
Yeah, so how long have you been lifting weights, Ziyoda? You said you didn't lift weights in the past, but what do you kind of like, how long have you been lifting weights consistently right now?
Around, I would say, a month and a half.
Okay,
Yeah, so
so
not hugely long.
yeah. Are you tracking calories, or you're watching, or you're changing anything in your diet, or?
I'm not tracking calories, definitely not, but I am making sure that I'm eating enough protein, enough as in, just because I know how much chicken, right? Chicken breast, um, the amount of fish that I eat if I eat fish. So I'm making sure that I'm getting protein in each meal and snack if possible. Um, and just trying to eat the way that I would normally eat, because that kind of eating has never caused me to gain or lose excessive amounts of weight. So that's the
Oh,
only
okay.
thing.
Yeah. So if you're absolutely a beginner at
Mm-hmm.
lifting weights,
Yeah.
you can kind of stick to your diet right now, Ziyoda, and you will automatically kind of gain that little bit of muscle and lose that bit
Mm-hmm.
of fat. Like, it's gonna automatically happen if you don't change the amount you're eating. So keep it kind of the same, which
Okay.
is pretty difficult, because it's like, oh, it didn't look that much, and oh, yesterday, oh yeah, I did. But then at the end of
Yeah.
the week, you want to make sure that it's like all the calories you're eating at the end of the week is consistent, week by week by week by week. If
Right.
one week is a little bit more, or one week's a little bit less, then it's like you may gain muscle or you may lose fat. So you're kind of like bouncing in between.
Right, right.
So for a lot of people, like it's kind of hard to be like, I'm eating the exact same amount every single day unless you're tracking. But if you want to kind of like lose the belly fat, you can kind of pick one
Yeah.
first. Do you know kind of um, your body fat percentage, Ziyoda? Do you have any of idea or something?
Not at all.
Okay, so up to a certain point, like I would say, usually for women, it determines how you decide whether you want to build muscle or lose fat first to kind of change your body is
Mm-hmm.
based on your current body fat percentage.
Right.
So if it's anything above 25%, you want to
Mm-hmm.
lose fat first and then build muscle. If
Ah,
it's
okay, okay.
below 25%, then you can build muscle because like you said, it's like you need to eat more to build
Mm-hmm.
muscle, but then eating more also comes with the fat, right? Unless you're very carefully with tracking. A lot of people tend to eat in excess
Yeah,
what they need for muscle. And so when they bulk up, everything looks kind of soft because you have a lot of fat underneath.
yeah.
So with body fat, if your body fat is pretty high, you don't want to be adding to that body fat.
Yeah.
And your body's going to be more resistant towards building muscle. It's just kind
Mm-hmm.
of just the way the leptin and the muscle resistance. So if you have low body fat, it's a good time to build. Up to a certain point, it's like you don't want to even keep building muscle because you're just going to get packing on more body fat, right? And then your
Yeah.
body is not going to build muscle as easily versus if you were leaner in the body fat. So that kind of like depends, right? And then as far as kind of building muscle, you don't need to eat that many more calories, right? I would say if you, I know in the book I talk about the TDEE, which is the
Mm-hmm.
total daily energy
Yeah.
expenditure. So that takes into account your workouts, it takes into account your own inner metabolism, how many calories you're going to need. So if you calculate your TDEE, you only need maybe 100 calories extra to
Mm-hmm.
build muscle. Like you don't need, like I know probably on Instagram, you probably see people are like cheat day and they're like eating
Yeah.
all this and yet they have a six pack, right? I'm like, they didn't get there by doing that. But you
Yeah.
don't need to eat that much more to build muscle, especially as you want to lose the fat and you want to lean out, right?
Yeah.
So you want to make sure that you're not overcompensating with too many calories. And then also get your body fat measured. Because if you're
Yeah.
above 25%, you want to reduce body fat first, still keeping with your workout, still
Mm-hmm.
lifting weights, but take a reduction in calories, lose that body fat until maybe you're under 25%, and then bump it up again and start lifting heavy and building that muscle. And then up to a certain point, when your body fat goes back up, you cycle again, lose that body fat, and then build that muscle. So it's not like a one-time process where it's like 6 months. Yeah, the belly fat's gone, and I'm like, defined. And it doesn't. It happens in cycles. It always happens
Yeah.
because, like you said, it's opposite spectrum, right? To build
Yeah.
muscle, to build and lose fat is like different directions. So in order to do
Exactly.
both, you have to cycle.
All right.
Yeah.
And so would you recommend then that I do track? Do is that really important, especially at the beginning, would you say?
So if you're concerned about not getting results and you're someone who's like, oh
Mm-hmm.
my gosh, I'm gonna quit in 2 months but I don't see anything,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
would highly recommend you start tracking Ziyoda, like track.
Okay.
Because then you know at the end of the week, if you're doing your measurements, or you're stepping on the scale and you're lifting weights, you're like,
Yeah.
okay, if I'm not seeing the results, you know exactly why, and you
Mm-hmm.
have the data to back it up, and you know where to change the data. Versus if you're just gonna follow plan, it's like 2 months, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't look like that person. I'm super disappointed. I'm gonna move on to something else. You have data and you know
Yeah.
where you went wrong. And so the next time you try it, you know where to go and you have a plan
Mm-hmm.
for that. So I would recommend tracking. If that's
And
kind of like, your personality that way.
let's say so one day was in excess. Would you recommend then the next day to reduce or not?
So look at the weekly
So
average.
let's say you go out for a dinner, you know that you have eaten in excess. would you recommend that the next day not to eat at all, but to reduce your calories?
Yeah, I would reduce. So you want to
Okay.
look at kind of the 7-day average. So let's say if you're appropriate, like you're eating 2,000 calories, one
Yeah.
day you may eat 1,800. You went out for dinner, ate 25, and then next day you're
Yeah.
going to cut. I'm going to do 1,700. You want to make sure that the average, the weekly average,
Mm-hmm.
comes out to 2,000.
Okay. Yeah.
So when you're tracking, you have those numbers. So just come out to 2,000. Otherwise, it's like up and down. Like just take the average.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. And then, like I said, I'm following a plan, but it doesn't say how much or how heavy to lift. In terms of how it feels, say I'm doing three sets. How at the 3 sets of 10, how should I feel when I'm doing my 10th one? Should I feel like giving out, or how? Yeah, basically, how should it feel?
So when you're lifting, there's like they call it the RPE, which is the rate of perceived exertion. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being you're sitting on a couch, like I
Mm-hmm.
can do this in my sleep. 10 being like, this is so hard. I'm going to go like 110%. You want to be at a 7. So every time you lift, if you're doing 3 sets of 10, by the time you get to rep 8, 9, and 10, it should be a struggle. Like you should be about a 7. You're like, oh my gosh, this is getting hard. This is getting
Okay.
tough. Because in all honesty, we set those specific rep ranges because your muscle responds to the stimulus that you give it, right? So it's like you have to tire out your muscles. And then when you kind of push towards the very end, like the rep number 8, rep number 9, rep number 10, you're like, oh my God, this is really challenging. This is level 7, 8. Boom. Then that's where it forces your muscle to be like, oh my gosh, I can't handle this. I need to grow. Right?
Okay.
Up to a certain point, it's like, oh, it's just so easy, so easy. I'm like, okay, I can handle this. I don't need to change, right? But you want that change. You want that stimulus for your muscles. And so you want to aim at a 7 or an 8. So by the time rep 10 comes around, you want to be like barely be able to do a 10. And if you can do a 10, bump up the weight.
Okay.
How you should be measuring
Right.
progress in the gym. Yeah.
Okay, makes sense. And so at the end of the workout, the full workout, how tired should I be then? Should I be kind of like very, very tired? Or, I mean, some sessions that I felt I haven't been tired.
So with strength training, it's very different from if you're just doing cardio, right? With cardio, it's kind of like I can barely walk off the machine. I'm covered in sweat. I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
Strength training is not necessarily that. You can feel very different depending on what session, what kind of muscles you're lifting, right? That's why you want to focus on the big compound muscles. But if you take care that every set that you do is at a level 7 or an 8, and you're done with your workout, it's good. Like you don't have to worry about like, oh my gosh, I cannot get out of bed tomorrow. Like, no. You want to be able to like feel good. You're tired, but it's not like where it's like you're so super sore and you just cannot move. Like the idea of like, people who do CrossFit, it's like so extreme. I'm like, no.
Yeah.
You're gonna get yourself injured. Like just aim for like 7.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. And then I think my last one is there like best exercise, let's say, for abs, or best couple of exercises to really build that, not to lose weight, because I know you can't spot reduce, but to really build that core and to strengthen the core?
Yeah, so with core, it's a little complicated because when people think of core, they're like, oh my gosh, I just got to do a million sit-ups. I'm like,
yeah.
No. So there's 3 different types of movements that you want to do for core. First is kind of like, they call it extension. So it's like the sit-ups, that kind of movement. There's many different versions of it. The second is, so you get your sit-ups. Oh, you have your side to side. So like your lateral, when you see people like do a dumbbell, they're going like side to side.
Yeah.
Like many different versions of that kind of exercise. And then the third exercise is rotational. So like turning from left to right.
Yeah.
And a good one for that for rotational is something called Pallof presses. So if you're looking, it's PALOFF, Palloff presses. Like
Okay.
you can do standing Palloff press, you can do a kneeling, you can do a half kneeling. Like those are like really good for rotational.
Okay.
Another good one for the side to side is suitcase carries. So if you're just carrying one heavy weight on one side and just taking a walk, because it's going to work because you have one weight on that one side, it's going to want to pull you and you're going to want to resist. So that a lot of it's that core oblique
Yeah.
kind of where, I don't know if you see guys kind of do that, like they'll carry
Oh,
one
I've never heard.
massive
No.
dumbbell and they'll like walk,
Okay.
and I'm like total core. Yep.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I never would have expected that at all. Okay,
Yeah.
that makes sense. So I can kind of understand how that would work.
Yeah. So if you do a lot of suitcase carries, like your abs are gonna pop out before your diet. I mean, like with the diet, it's like a lot of women are like, yeah, I'm not seeing my abs. It's not because necessarily you have a lot of fat coating your stomach area, but it's because you don't have any muscles there, so nothing's kind of coming out. Do you know what I mean? Like you
Okay.
see the lines and the
Yeah.
definition.
Yeah.
Some women are like, yeah, it's just not happening. I'm like, I'm dieting, and it's like flat, and I'm like, but there's no lines. I'm like, because you haven't built up the muscles there. So when you
Right.
have the muscles and you do the diet, then you see it starts to come out, like you
see it.
start to reveal those muscles. And you do that through the carries, the Palloff presses. You can do like side planks, many different variations. Just I wouldn't necessarily recommend crunches. If you have like low back issues, like don't do crunches.
No, okay. For me, yeah, I don't enjoy it at all doing the crunch. And in terms of when you're at the gym, is there an equipment that's because I've seen those. Have you seen the ones where you sit down and you pull on the machine, and that's supposed to work your abs? Is that a good one, or should I just be doing it on the floor with the way you explained? So there's a machine which where you can strap yourself and you can choose your weight, how much you're kind of pulling forward.
Oh, that's a crunch machine.
Yeah, so that's a crunch as well, right?
Yeah, it's a crunch as well. Yeah.
Okay, so would you recommend that or not?
No, I wouldn't recommend. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's my biggest issue. I think I've seen different ab exercises, and I know that you have to work different parts of your abs, like upper, lower. So I just want to know, like, to really build that core, what would be the most important. But yeah, I think that actually answered all of my, or most of my questions. Thank you so much for offering this as well. I hope I was
thanks for
of
your
some
time,
help.
Ziyoga.
Thank you as well.
Yeah, let me know if you have any other questions in the future. You just send me an email.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
Okay, bye, Ziyoga. Have a good day.
Bye.